Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Solo for Life podcast. Once again, we have Punk Disorder. This will make it a trilogy now.
Oh, heck yeah.
So, how have you been? What have you been playing, listening to, watching?
Oh man, that is a lot of questions with a lot of extremely different answers. So I've been good. As if anybody here is over there from my channel, you probably saw that I just went through a massive kind of branding overhaul where I swapped over from being Punk Disorder to just Punkling. Um, it's a it's a fun word that is technically a word that I've been kind of messing around with for a while. That I was like, I actually kind of like it. Punkling, little punk. um, Still maintains a lot of the same idea. It's just a lot snappier, a lot easier to say, and doesn't get all caught up in your tongue like Punk Disorder can. Um, but yeah, as far as gaming goes, so I have been kind of on a sort of like very clearly in like a bit of a transitionary phase where I've been going through a whole bunch of games and just trying kind of playing everything. I'm of course still playing Maple Story. That's just a universal constant of my life.
Mm.
Grass grows, birds fly, sun shines, and Punkling is playing Maple Story. That's just how it works. Um, and those are the rules of the universe. I've been kind of playing World of Warcraft recently. Season 2 of the Dragonflight expansion is completely and utterly screwed. It is very funny because Blizzard made a big oopsie, and there are currently there's currently one singular party composition you can play in the high-end content called Mythic Plus, and that comp has been lovingly called Exodia by a lot of people. And so that's been a really funny thing to watch. And I guess it kind of is, a topic that I want to, transitions into a wider topic about games and metas and accessibility and stuff like that. Um, Outside of that, I've finally started to will myself to play through Elden Ring. Um, and not all the way through, obviously, because what's time, and especially what is time when you're trying to play two MMOs simultaneously.
Mm.
We don't believe in time, nah, man. What we have is suppression, and so yeah. But I've been slowly chipping away at Elden Ring finally after a year and a half after its release. Um, but it is very, very wonderful. I'm playing a pretty bog standard, at least bog standard for me. I think if I remember correctly, I was doing a Great Axe build on the account that I was playing on mainly. Um, and then yeah, and then also some like axe dual wielding. I have a thing for axes. Axes are so much fun.
Oh, yes.
Um, and so yeah, I've been playing Unga Bunga in Elden Ring. I finally was like, okay, I should start looking at builds and doing this and making progress. Made my way through Mr. Fell Omen. It's one of those fights that I kind of realize when you're like, oh wow, they really not dialed it up for the first boss. No, it's not that bad. You just once you get his attack patterns, or even better, once you know how to parry him, uh, he just sort of folds. Man folds like an omelet, and you're like, oh, that was easy, I guess.
Margit is actually one boss that I cannot click with. I can click with most boss fights in Elden Ring, but for some reason, when it comes to Margit, I get so sloppy.
Yeah, I will say he has some very strange delays. Like, I think he was kind of a lot of people's first intro into Welcome to Elden Ring.
Mm.
Everybody here is actually a mechanical robot and does not move with the same gravity and fluidity that most humans do. Where he'll like do something that's a twirl, and you'll see his arm kind of lock short, and then he brings down his staff, and you're like, okay, so I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like holding a large staff at that angle would make my wrist really, really sore.
Well, it's not really the delays I have a problem with. It's his second phase. His first phase is fine, but once he gets into that stage where he's very fragile and you can't get close to him is what I can't stand because really the best opportunities is to wait for him to jump up and slam and get a little slice on him. Plus his little wind up where he'll charge, but if you're close enough to him, you can just simply get a few more hits on him. I think you probably know what I'm talking about. He lifts his
Yeah,
cane up over his head, and if you're far enough
yeah,
away, he zooms towards you. That
yeah.
one
If
is
you're
still
far
there.
away, yeah.
A good punish window for that one, but for the most part, you can't really get close to him because he's just gonna, excessively strike you.
I think that was the issue of like kind of how he's designed is it's not like it doesn't do a lot of damage, but it is definitely super irksome when it's happening. Is the way that he has pretty much the frame zero dagger. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Where with zero telegraph, zero movement, he'll
Yep.
suddenly just like finish an attack. You're like, cool, an opening, and then he suddenly teleports a dagger out of who knows where and slash you in the face just for the
Yep.
memes. And you're like, bro, it was my turn. As I'm
Yeah.
sure you've heard that analogy. Souls games are actually just turn based,
And that's one.
where you attack, you attack, they attack.
Mm-hmm. And that's one of the biggest issues Elden Ring has. Is just a lot of poorly telegraphed attacks, and it's just a lot of people don't realize how important telegraph attacks are, because it's really satisfying when you can pick up on a read and properly evade and punish that attack. And then people whenever people criticize telegraphs, I always question them. I'm like, okay, what do you mean by poorly telegraphed? And they usually cannot answer for some reason. I think what usually happens is that they're like, oh yeah, you can definitely tell when that attack's coming. I'm like, well, isn't that the point of having an attack telegraphed? I mean, I don't really understand your criticism here. I mean, I can understand maybe the telegraph being too long. That's the thing, but the fact that it's being telegraphed before it happens is how video game design should work, because you need to be able to read something and then follow up on it. And then you got another side of the bad telegraphed attacks is when it just happens suddenly, there's no telegraph. So
Yeah, there's a really interesting interplay that Souls games, are obviously they're not always perfect, but they definitely
mm-hmm.
do really good with. But there's an interplay between good telegraphs, there's good telegraphing, delaying, and overlong to the point that it just becomes easy and obvious telegraphing. Um, and so there's definitely an interplay of where it ends up being like where it remains fun and tense while keeping out of the zone of as Donkey said, and you're okay with cursing here,
Oh sure,
right?
yeah.
Make sure. As Video Game Donkey says in one, video games need to find that balance between tough but fair and tough but fuck you. And that's kind of what the untelegraphed sort of thing is, where it's like, tough but fair is, I would say, like his big overhand swing, the one you're talking about, where if you're too far away, he'll do his twirling dash, where he'll run at you, he'll do one twirl, and then he'll do another swing. But if he's lifting up over his head, it gives you that choice. When you see that movement, you go, okay, do I stay close? And then that's a really good riposte window. If you get good at his riposte timings, you can just parry his bring down of that because it's pretty consistent.
mm-hmm.
Or you can back up and try and buy yourself a slightly easier riposte window, but also you might not get out of and so you have to actually kind of make some quick decision making. And so I think that's really cool. But yeah, that is a interesting sort of topic on its own of like, what bosses and what things mechanically across all games, not just Souls games, strike that really solid balance of good telegraphs that don't feel like hand holding, but also don't feel horrifically unfair, where they're that friend that throws the baseball at you and right before it hits you in the head, they go, hey, catch!
I think the Castlevania 3D games for PS2 are really good at just having a good balance of everything. Some of them are a bit generous, but during my playthrough of Curse of Darkness, just going through there, seeing what's possible with the restrictions, I'm finding a lot of attacks very, very interesting to just walk out of the way from. I don't know if you saw my Iron Golem no dodge, no damage challenge accomplishment. And
Was that on? I did actually just go through your channel a few days ago. Just curious to see what you've been uploading lately, because I like to stalk fellow YouTubers. But I did not see that video.
Yeah, it's a journey I've been on lately. Pretty much, my channel hasn't heard from me really for a month. I think my last video I was talking on was about turn-based games, and ever since then I've been on this whole discovery for stuff that just hasn't been explored, or I feel like hasn't been explored, because I'll go on YouTube and look it up, saying, has this been done? Has that been done? And I noticed that there's definitely, obviously, no damage runs for boss fights in Curse of Darkness. So I'm like, okay, what about no dodging? Let's see. But actually, there are no videos. So as far as I know, I'm the only person that has no dodging, no damage on Curse of Darkness on YouTube, which is pretty cool. So I got that, but I only have 2 bosses so far. I need to jump back on and get more done. But I'm actually concentrating on Wolverine's Revenge, which is actually mind blowing right now, because it's the same thing. There's actually no videos of no damage runs in general for Wolverine's Revenge. Isn't that crazy?
Huh.
So
Pretty wild, honestly.
I've been going through, and so far I got 3 boss fights, and every boss fight's been very viable with the restrictions. Now it's just with no damage. I haven't done like the no dodge stuff, because I just don't really think that's viable because of the way the boss fights are designed, because they're designed in a very gimmicky framing. But you can accomplish them without taking damage, as far as I know. Because right now I'm on Juggernaut, and he's definitely viable for no damage. But let's see, with Sabretooth was definitely a very interesting study, because you can't just simply run around and wait for him to telegraph an attack. He just simply chases you, and he waits for you to do something. And so I had to figure out how I can. Okay, here's another thing. There's a lot of little twists and turns about how this game works. Okay, you cannot lock onto an enemy. You cannot manually do it. You have to engage in combat for you to lock onto an enemy. You can take the target lock off, but you cannot put it back on. The only way you can do that is for the enemy to attack you, or you gotta attack the enemy. It's very odd. I've never seen.
How old was this game? That sounds like old school video game jank if I've ever heard of it.
This is 2003.
Yeah, that's old school video game jank right there.
I'm playing the game for the 20th anniversary of that game. It's my childhood game. I loved it. I cannot believe I beat it back then. I'm pretty sure it took me a year, because I've been going through these levels. These levels I'm pretty sure they're impossible to go through without taking damage, because you got to think about projectiles, the enemies that are shooting at you, and the ways the levels are designed. It is absolutely brutal. And I guess I think this is where I developed my preference for level design, because I'm like, whenever I see a level, I'm like, this is boring. I don't have anything coming at me all the time. So I think I'm blaming Wolverine's Revenge for setting a standard so high for level design.
Jeez. Man, well, I'm only being attacked from 6 angles instead of all 8. Man, what a boring game.
I'm serious. I mean, whenever I'm playing Wolverine's Revenge, I'm like, man, this makes other games look so bland with their level design.
Man, I always kind of wonder of why a lot of games are so like kind and generous with the enemy overwhelm. I know a lot of times it's not enemies aren't as numerous because of hardware restrictions, where every enemy on there is VRAM being taken up. But there's still times where I'm like, dude, this game would be so great if there was more shit to fight at all times. That's all I want.
Now, there are some games where restrictions just don't work because the gameplay's too chaotic, and that's Twisted Metal and Rampage. I tried playing those games, and I really just don't think there's anything to salvage in terms of restrictions, because, like I said, there's just too much going on to really put in something very skillfully precise. You know what I mean?
To craft like your own challenge run, is that what you mean?
I'm sorry?
As in, like, when you say put in restriction, you mean like craft your own challenge run, like no hits, no...
Yeah, no damage, no... I mean, I guess really what you can do is just maybe go through it without healing, but, I don't know. There's just a lot of luck involved, and I tend to kind of just walk away from just when it's heavily luck focused.
Bro, just say your prayer to RNGesus. That's how it usually works.
Oh, no, I'm never blessed with the RNG Jesus. That's one reason why I never got into speedruns, because I'm like, yeah, my luck's not going to give me any favors. I'm just not very lucky when it comes to stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I have done some like dabbling in speed running. Mostly, it's just been Skyrim because I played so much gosh darn Skyrim in my life that I was like, hey, I might as well start speed running this. Not like I'm gonna do anything else till 2026. Bethesda, taking your sweet time on releasing Elder Scrolls 6. Don't mind me though. And so I just started, trying some Skyrim speed runs. Obviously, nothing impressive. I'm still learning a lot of the tech and whatnot. My best run was like an hour and a half when the current world records are like 20 minutes. But hey, still pretty solid, when most people say, wait, Skyrim had an ending? So, yeah, for the most part, it's still all right. But yeah, I'm definitely still very much learning a lot about, what Skyrim and Skyrim speedrunning is about. But just the best way to think of speedrunning, even if you're like, I'm not very lucky, is just remember infinite monkeys, infinite typewriters. Eventually one of them's gonna write Shakespeare. Just keep on trying runs, and eventually you're gonna get that one run that is so incredibly lucky that you're like, well, I'm never beating this PR, but okay.
Yeah, I mean, it never hurts to get your own personal record. I mean, that's fun to do. Um, so so we got upcoming games. Which ones are you looking forward to? I mean, it could be this year or the beginning of next year.
Oh, I wish I could look forward to upcoming games. I
Hmm.
can't. I'm legally not allowed to look forward to upcoming games because I have a backlog of like 500 games
Ah,
and I don't know where to start. And I'm like, oh no, please stop releasing. Hey, video game industry, everybody collectively, let's just agree, we stop releasing games for just like 1 year, okay? We just don't release anything.
yeah.
Okay, when I get all caught up, and then you can start releasing it whatever the hell you want again. Okay, you guys clearly need all the time to like keep working on this stuff anyways, since most AAA games are completely riddled with bugs and everything. So, you guys get more time to work on stuff. I get time to get caught up on the backlog, and everybody wins, right?
Uh,
And no, apparently they won't take me up on this offer because they want to make money or something. It's so dumb. Uh,
I I had,
so
I had to take a break from Final Fantasy 16 because the story bloating is ridiculous, and it's not with the like directly the main campaign. It's just the in between. There's a lot of NPC jumping in that game where you just talk to NPC and then they're like, "All right, time to talk to the next NPC," and
uh,
it's like that for like an hour, maybe that's like it's an hour of skipping and probably even more. Well, obviously more if you're listening to every single thing that they're saying. So
yeah.
I was paying attention to what they were saying because I was actually interested in the story, but after a while, I'm like, I'm just not even paying
What?
attention anymore.
Wait a minute. How did we get to this planet? Who is this person? What? Oh gosh, why are they trying to kiss my character? What the heck?
But the boss fights are pretty good. The combat's fun. So I've been having fun using restrictions against the hunts mainly because the campaign bosses are way too long and way too chaotic for me to really put a whole lot of time into. So I just focus on boss fights that last about 3 to 5 minutes. And at the very beginning, I was just using basic attacks, and then that started climbing up towards 10 minutes. And so I'm like, okay, I think I'll just start using abilities because I'm going to end up burning myself out like crazy.
Mhm. Yeah, the I've definitely been interested in it, but I have been trying to be very restrictive with myself on getting new games for
Hmm.
no other reason than the fact that I every time I want to buy a new game, I have to look at my backlog and name what year I bought every game that's on there. And if I can't name the year on any of them, or on at least one of them, then clearly I have too many games in my backlog, and I need to be playing what I have and not getting new games to add to the backlog
You
because
should
that is basically what will happen.
you should take a picture of your backlog and frame it and have Nosferatu pointing at it.
Yeah, literally. This happened. Just, hmm? You sure? You sure you want to buy more games? No, no, Mr. Desperati, sir.
um, ooh, that chair just made a huge squeak.
And on that topic, I very specifically, because I am a horrible person, I literally just today, because of GameStop's like buy one get one sales, I picked up Wolong, that one like Chinese sort of Ghost of Tsushima esque. I heard a lot of good things about it. Then Wild Hearts I picked up because a lot of people said it's like Monster Hunter, but not. And I like Monster Hunter. And then I picked up Jedi Survivor because gosh darn it, if I don't want to play Jedi Dark Souls, you know?
Moving Out 2 comes out this month on the 15th, August 15th. I'm definitely looking forward to that. And then Armored Core, I'm waiting to see how that turns out. And I think that's going to be it. I don't think there's really anything else I want to get for the rest of the year.
On that topic, actually, I'm kind of curious, and that's a topic I want to transition to with this whole idea of what are they called? I just totally blanked. So there's a cat purring on my hand. With I guess titles and releases, I kind of want to get to that topic. Is like, how do you perceive sort of the content flow? And like we can get to that later. Obviously, I just wanted to throw that out there so I remembered to get it out there so I didn't forget. Because I can forget things.
Okay.
Yes, hi cat. Yes, you are on my hand. But yeah. So you said Moving Out to that's the indie game, right? That's like,
yes.
am I right? It's like an indie game, and I don't remember the premise of it. I know I've heard the name before, but I do not remember the premise. Is it one of those kind of like work life sim games where you have one goal, like, and it's moving, moving furniture, moving stuff?
Yes, you're moving furniture and very very claustrophobic level designs. You got all kinds of unique and fun obstacles getting in your way of delivering. Sometimes you have animals that are preventing you from moving furniture into the truck. Sometimes you got chickens, turtles, and it can be as chaotic as you want. You can throw beds through the window. Of course, it's
okay, yeah, and I remember that. Seeing some footage of that where it's like, oh, I needed to get this moved out, and there was this in my way, so I just threw the piano out the top story, and it's like, what? Don't do that.
Oh man, it's it's a blast. I mean, it's kind of, if it wasn't for Overcooked, I wouldn't have given it any attention. So I have to thank Overcooked for getting me into the style of game, because it's absolutely just a blast. Just that overview, top overview perspective, playing as these little tiny people, and the outfits for Moving Out 2 look even wackier. Like, they removed one costume. They've been posting like cut content, which I think was a mistake, because a lot of the cut costumes look really cool. Like, one that they cut out was a hand holding a pizza, and the pizza has a face on it. I'm like, why'd you cut that out? That looks amazing.
Why do you guys cut all the best stuff? What, is the anti-fun police living in your guys' like studio, or?
Yeah, no. I even said that to him. I was like, "Come on, put that back in. What are you doing?" I mean, maybe they'll put that into a DLC perhaps, but yeah. I think I've done everything. I didn't really do a completionist run on the DLC. I just kind of finished the levels, and I haven't really gone back to do it perfectly, because I just wanted to say that I finished it. That way, maybe later on I can go back, but maybe it won't have. I noticed that there's definitely a big advancement in the level design in the DLC, so I'm hoping that's a good sign that from the footage that I've seen so far, it looks like they're doing a really good job advancing the level design, which is great, because level design is very precious to me. If you make a game, the level design needs to be good, because the combat can be great, but you also need that level design to go in there to complement it.
Has to have a fun place to do all of the good gameplay in.
That's one thing.
I thought it cut out. Oh, that was weird.
Oh, yeah. That's one thing I criticized from software games lately, like with Elden Ring, is that their arenas are getting boring now. It's like with Demon Souls and Dark Souls, Dark Souls 2, their arenas were really cool. They had obstacles and all kinds of conflict that you could have during battle, and just now they just kind of stopped doing it, and I'm just wondering why. It's just,
I think that I get what you're saying on that. Like, I think that with the scope of Elden Ring, I think they somehow wanted to make sure that they could keep the same sort of semi-structured combat. There's some interesting, like some of the open world encounters in Elden Ring, I think work really well. Because of the way that you just kind of stumble across them. It's like, all right, you just ran out into the middle of a lake and a dragon just crashed down. You have 5 seconds before he kills you. What do you do? And that makes for really fun design. But then, there's other things where it's just like, here's a big round circle. Enjoy. And you're like, hey, where's the gaping dragon arena with like broken pillars and the muck water and all the gross stuff? Like, where's all the visually pretty design things? I think Ricard's arena is really pretty. Um, Godric's arena is all right. It's kind of a narrow corridor hallway sort of thing. Outside, I guess the courtyard. That's the word I'm looking for. Um, but yeah, it's gotten more hit and miss. I wouldn't say it's gotten bad, but definitely more hit and miss than the absolute bangers that they cranked out in like Dark Souls 1, Demon Souls, and stuff like that. Like Iron Golem's arena is a great example of a banger of an arena that kind of complements the boss. And when you realize that he can throw you off the edge, it gets those the mind gears turning. You're like, what if I could throw him off the edge? And that's the Iron Golem cheese. It's not really even that cheesy, I guess, because it's kind of intended, I guess.
I like I think the Clean Rot Knight arena is really cool. The one that's in Learning of the Lakes, where pretty much the majority of the arena is poison. So it's a fun little challenge not to get poisoned while you're fighting the Clean Rot Knight. So
yeah,
I don't hear enough people talking about that one. I guess because he's too weak and people like to go in and one shot bosses.
yeah, there are definitely some bosses that people said like, man, I really liked this fight, but his health bar was paper mache, and I killed him in 3 hits. But I could tell there was a good boss fight waiting under there with a longer health bar.
Well, I keep telling people, I'm like, just use a weaker weapon, but apparently that's not an option for them.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, and that's like not something I could even necessarily fault anybody on. Like, hey, do you want to enjoy the game? Just actively make yourself weaker, Fivehead. It's like, I also like to feel powerful. Question mark. Yeah,
Well, I mean,
RPGs are about feeling like I am a strong person. I like to be strong. If I wanted to be weak, I'd go and work my 9 to 5 job and feel useless. Bada bing.
I mean, one thing you got to remember is that Elden Ring's difficulty is organic. You adjust it according to what kind of challenge you want, and the way that you make it challenging is use weaker equipment.
Yeah, that is true. Like people putting their own level caps, and yeah, the organic and the self-adjustable difficulty depending on what you are choosing to do. But I do still also think that there is some burden on the devs of like, okay, there should be some semblance of like balance and design and progression, regardless of what difficulty you choose on. Like, do you choose to play dual wielding warrior difficulty, also known as very hard, because dual wielding light armor warrior, you've got 0 defenses, your dodging better be on point, or are you going to play mage with consumables, which is also known as easy mode? those are the 2 difficulty options.
Well, that's the fun thing about stuff like From Software games is that everybody's got a different experience. I mean, the ones that do blind playthroughs, of course, you got some people that look up YouTube and just follow directly, but people that just do blind playthroughs, that they always have a unique story through the From Software games, and it's pretty wild what you can actually hear from someone that genuinely experienced the game for the first time.
There's something kind of on that topic. Once we're out of here, I'm just reminding myself. Continue.
Oh no, it's just kind of, it's heartbreaking when you hear someone say that they used YouTube throughout the entire game.
Yeah, there's some games that you can never get the experience back of playing them blind for the first time. Like, yeah. I think I've made it super clear. I said it in the video I made about it, but I would sell a lot of priceless things for the experience of having my first blind playthrough of Skyrim back again. I would sell some close relatives for that experience.
Oh wow. Oh.
It is a very, very cherished game to me, and like that blind first playthrough when you have no idea about builds or armor or exploits or like the fortify restoration loop that people always talk about, like all of those things, having no knowledge of it, just running in there, not knowing what every cave is, not knowing where every item is, and like those are things, because I played Skyrim so much, they just kind of commit it to memory. You're like, oh yeah, I know the general location of just about everything in the game now, despite how big it is. And it's like, I kind of wish I didn't.
Mm.
And it sucks. I would give a lot to get the first playthrough of Skyrim back, because gosh dang, if that first playthrough of Skyrim isn't a genuinely magical experience,
So
at least it was for me.
what are you wanting in the next Elder Scrolls exactly?
I'm gonna be a horrible person here for a second. I am wanting them to make it something very substantially different from Skyrim, but then I'm gonna complain about all the ways that they changed it from Skyrim. I want Skyrim again, but I don't want Skyrim again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because I think that's why they're taking so long. It's going to be 15 years between the release of Elder Scrolls 5 and Elder Scrolls 6. Because could you imagine the rut that they've essentially written themselves into? Like, imagine that. Well, shoot. I went on ahead and I made one of very likely the most influential games of the decade in the 2010s, right at the beginning. And now what do? Do we rush out a sequel to capitalize on that? Okay. Do we take our time? What if it's not as good as Skyrim? Well, it probably won't be remembered as good as Skyrim, because Skyrim was more or less was like a once in a generation kind of game. I don't know how many more Skyrims we're going to have that not just kind of take the gaming world by storm, but kind of take the whole culture, and are talked about 12 years after their release, kind of thing, and where they are still, oh yeah, I still play that game frequently 12 years after its release.
So
uh it's ridiculous.
what would be the most offensive change?
I think the most offensive change would obviously be embracing a lot of modern gaming trends.
Hmm.
I think that if I had to put it into words, and I really had, you held me at gunpoint and said, "All right, you're gonna have to come up with something that you don't want to see in Elder Scrolls 6." I would have to say, if it embraced too many or any really modern gaming trends, and it got away from the atmosphere that made Skyrim Skyrim. That, I think, would be the most offensive thing, is modern gaming trends. So live service, anything, loot boxes, microtransactions, do not care. If that is in there, it is already 1,000,001 points below Skyrim, because I don't want to be thinking about other people when I am playing, a game that I've played for 15 years, as it will once Elder Scrolls 6 releases. Skyrim will be 15. But I don't want to. I went to that game when I wanted to escape from reality, not be reminded, oh yeah, there's other people out there, and a lot of them want my money. Uh, and so I think that's kind of would be the most offensive change, is if they were to say, hey, fork out some cash for some loot boxes, please. I would be so, like, for not trying to be dramatic, but I would legitimately probably be hurt if they were to announce that was what they were planning to do.
I would
I
like
would
to.
feel like, why?
I guess it wouldn't have to necessarily be Elder Scrolls, but it would be cool, I guess, if they did it. But I would like to see like just a dynamic world that's affected by your choice. And I'm not talking about like little small
Mhm.
things, like someone saying thank you at the end of the game. I'm talking about something like you could purposely either make the whole world love you, and then the game ends on a very peaceful note where you've you created peace throughout the entire land. You're able to solve the conflicts between each, all the tribes or whatever, saying, oh, this is what they wanted, so I went out there and accomplished it. Then the end of the game happens when the last conflict is, resolved. And then you have another thing where you could just be a jerk and just have everybody hate you, and then the game ends where everybody's trying to kill you, I guess. And maybe it turns into a whole survival thing where the game ends once they finally kill you and the credits start rolling.
Jeez, man, you suck. Anyways, here's credits. I mean, I guess that's the thing, is there's a balance to strike between the player's impact in the world, without making them overly. That's the word I'm looking for. There's a balance to strike between making you over consequential and inconsequential. You
Mm-hmm.
don't want to feel completely useless in the world, but you also don't want to feel like, I've noticed this trend a lot, and like maybe it's just a me thing, or maybe it's just in the communities that I'm a part of. But I've noticed a lot of people trending away from not really loving destined hero tropes. in games as much as they like generic, boring citizen of fictional world
Mm.
tropes. Like you've seen, like we were talking about moving out and house things like House Flipper and Power Wash Simulator, Hard Space Shipbreaker. All these games that people would call, like job simulators, essentially, where even if it's set in a fictional world, it has kind of the same mundanity and kind of like tongue-in-cheek, man, life really can be kind of crappy sometimes, huh? Of being a generic civilian person in these fictional worlds. And I think that there's also a very kind of clear undertone to that in a lot of mods, where you'll see there's a lot of mods. I mean, there's plenty that just say, "Don't make me the Dragonborn," where people won't refer to you as Dragonborn. You won't play through the Dragon Quest line. You can just play everything else in the game, and there's just no mention of the Dragonborn or anything.
Mm.
And I think that that's one of those things is people, they're like, okay, cool, we've seen just about every fictional world through the eyes of a destined hero, but what does the fictional world look like through Jim who runs the bread shop? And those are the kinds of stories that I think we're gonna hopefully see a few more of, because those are the kinds of things that, at least from what I've seen in trends in both gaming and discussion and whatnot, people are kind of uh, angling towards a little bit more nowadays. Another instance of that is World of Warcraft. Um, in what should we call it? In World of Warcraft, people have been saying like, okay, look, I've been kind of tired of being the destined hero who's the only one who can save the world every single expansion. Can we just like not? Could we not be that, please? I want to be I want to be just some random dude. I just want to be an adventurer. That's what we were in classic. We were just some adventurers that had no prestige, nobody knew of us, and like, yeah, I guess it doesn't make a lot of lore sense for the people that have stopped rampaging gods and angry entire demon legions from destroying your planet. Like, okay, who are those people? Obviously, it doesn't make sense for them to be completely unknown, but there's still a sense of like, why are we so glorified? I'd really like to go back to writing my own story of who my character is or who I am. And I'm kind of hoping that Elder Scrolls 6 finds some ways to lean into that. Honestly, I'm hoping they take some inspiration from the mod scene of a lot of mods that are semi-popular, like business management. People would love to just open and manage business in Tamriel and the Elder Scrolls universe. A more interactive economy would be really cool to see. Something outside of just, oh, you spend gold at places and then you can take your gold to other places and spend gold, and nothing really shifts hands, but more of like a world that feels more alive with an economy would be really cool. There's a lot of Skyrim mods that will do things like, oh, certain materials are cheaper or more expensive based on where you get them, because of certain lore or socio-political reasons or stuff like that. So stuff in Riften is more expensive because the Thieves Guild is levying like a protection racket tax on top of everything. So okay, so these things will be more expensive, but things like weapons and armors are cheap because self-defense is going to be cheap in a place that's run by thieves and stuff like that. It's those sorts of ideas where it's like there's subtle facts and hints about lore that are woven into gameplay mechanics and systems, and I really really like it when games do that, and it's not something too common to see.
I would love to see something funny like a political system where you can have debates with somebody, and if you
Oh.
don't have the right information, then you lose the debate. It's like the water in the well is terrible. It tastes dreadful. The pH is way too high, and you're like, hold on a second, be right back. And then you go around just testing the water and reading books. Actually, the pH is perfect. Well, there's too much algae in there. That's what's nasty. There's too much algae. It's green, and I taste too much of it. All right, I'll be right back. Turns out the chlorine level is just right enough to get rid of the algae. There is no algae in this well.
Huh. Yeah, little detective style things. That'd be fun. But yeah, I think that's just kind of the big thing is going back all the way back around to what I had initially said is I would really, really like it if they could. I know it's going to be a tough thing, obviously, but I'm hoping they can recapture Skyrim's majesty. I think is probably the best word I could think of
Mm.
for what I want to see in this upcoming installment. I want it to feel like a place that I want to visit, a place I want to see, a place I want to know more about, a place that captures my imagination and my whimsy, and a place that I feel like I could talk about for years instead of another forgettable game to heap onto the AAA pile of stuff that is heaped onto the AAA pile. That's, I think, the best way I could possibly describe what I want.
Now, I'm pretty sure that the eeriness of the Elder Scrolls game, that's just gonna be a part of its charm, and that's just, I mean, you know what I mean, right? The just that kind of eeriness, that slight eeriness that's in every game.
Yeah, the eeriness, but it's not necessarily even a bad eeriness. It's a
Right.
loneliness, but it's a really kind of comforting loneliness
Well,
where you're like I'm alone, but it's the feeling of being okay with being alone. You're like I really think that this would be a worse experience with more people. Like yeah, I if I want to play with friends, I can go play a million and one other multiplayer online games. But right now I want to be by myself, and Skyrim is where I can be by myself.
yeah, I know Oblivion had a lot of eeriness that I loved. Like you could just be walking around in the wilderness, and all of a sudden this portal to hell opens up. I always
Mhm.
loved that. I always preferred that more than the dragons just popping up because the portal to hell just opened up this whole other area. That you had to conquer. Do you know was that randomly generated or was that just kind of
I
planned?
the way that they usually do them, I don't know if it was different for Oblivion because fun fact of the day, I've yet to play Oblivion.
Oh heck!
Of course, I obviously know like all of the lore stuff about it. I just haven't played through the game proper.
Oh
But
man.
I'm very funny about that. I'm like, yeah, I love Elder Scrolls. By Elder Scrolls, I mean I have only played Skyrim and I have listened to a million and one lore videos about every other Elder Scrolls game. So you are allowed to determine how much knowledge I have based on those facts.
Well,
um,
well, they're supposed to have an upgrade of Oblivion, like an official one for
yeah, I
release.
heard that they're making Oblivion remastered,
Now
which
they
is funny because Lamau Sky Oblivion team.
well, they need to take advantage of that the Oblivion gates because with the way systems run now, you should be able to just walk right through and you're in that area instead of just a loading screen.
Yeah, I'm wondering if they're going to lean into that or if they're going to go more the remaster route of just like, we prettied up the graphics a bit and then we slapped a $60 price tag on it, bada
Yeah.
bing, bada boom,
Um,
which is more than likely because Microsoft and Bethesda and everybody involved.
that was a big missed opportunity for High on Life, which is a game that I really really enjoyed. I enjoyed the humor, I enjoyed the way the game played, and but they have a lot of transporting through portals and such, and they could have really used the next generation power to just simply do it in a second, like with Demon Souls, where you just transport and it just takes like a
Yeah.
matter of seconds and you're there. And for some reason, they're like, we got to keep it on the last gen, and
Yeah, that's the biggest thing is because a lot of these games have been in development since last gen, and a
yeah.
lot of devs probably weren't completely sure until maybe like 2017, 2018 about what was actually going into the PS5. They were like, well, let's just develop it with a hard drive in mind because we've had hard drives on systems since 2000. I don't know if it's gonna. Oh, and here we are. We are now at the SSD generation, and so suddenly, all the first-party developers obviously were told, okay, here you go. Yes, we're going to have an SSD. Find a way to make it so everything is seamless because it'll make our system look cool and it'll give us a reason to say that it has to be exclusive to PS5, but or Xbox Series X. But yeah, without all of that knowledge, then yeah, these developers are like, well, we didn't want our game to set the PS4 on fire, so we had to do this.
Well, they finally put on PS5, but I don't know how the transportation works exactly. I haven't looked at any
Mm,
gameplay footage, but I know there's a DLC coming out later this year. But I really don't want to buy it again unless it has a physical copy because I mean, well, I played on Game Pass and it didn't run very well because it was on the Xbox Series S or whatever the last
ooh.
generation system. And so,
Oh, One X, yeah.
yeah, One X, I think was it? I
One
don't know.
One X was the last generation.
Okay, yeah, it's I don't know. They kind of screwed up. I love the 360 name. That was cool, but after that, they really didn't know what to name it, did they?
Yeah, Xbox is weird because like I have a soft spot for Xbox. I really love the way the controllers feel. I love I like a couple of their exclusives. I do think that they have a bit of a weird rut with their exclusives where they're like, we've got Halo and we've got Forza. Well, that's all we got. See you guys later, I guess. It's like, hey, did you guys have literally no other ideas of what you were gonna do for your exclusives? They're like, oh, no. What do you mean? You wanted us to use our brains? You wanted us to get creative with this? I don't know. It's just man with gun. I thought that was as far as we needed to think. Jeez, why are you asking so much of us?
Oh man. But yeah, have you seen this whole thing about some games not including the physical copy? Like Alan Wake 2 received
Oh gosh,
a lot of
yeah.
bashing.
I don't understand how. Why not include the physical copy? It's so dumb.
Well, they just. I mean, I feel that they just don't want people to own things. You know, I mean, I don't know. That's kind of how I feel. It feels like I mean, thankfully, it doesn't happen often, but I've had games that have actually been taken away from me, through digital purchases, like Marvel Ultimate Alliance. I can't download that anymore, and
Mm-hmm.
and it also sucks that they release these systems with barely any memory on them, so you have to delete them,
Exactly.
and if they get taken off, you can't download them again because you're trying to make
Well,
space for the system you bought.
yeah, man, sucks to suck, I guess. Well, hope you know had fun playing it because you're never touching it again, you stupid idiot.
Like it
You're like,
sucks that
okay, thanks.
they took the PT demo down. That
PT, that's a game that is basically lost to time now because
Yep.
unless you have a PS4 that was like never connected to the internet after it got taken down, like there's so much stuff. It's just, yeah, games preservation is something I'm actually pretty passionate about. Hence why, when I say my backlog, I'm not just looking at my screen and like scrolling through, ooh, what do I want to play? No, I'm spinning around a big physical, like Lazy Susan, that's stacked all halfway up to my ceiling with games from across, almost 30 years of consoles and and video game like hardware. It's ridiculous how many of these games there are, and I just look at this thing. I'm like, wow, that's a lot of games.
Do you ever go to your local game stores?
Oh, all the time. Yeah, I only buy my games physically if I have the opportunity. I will buy all or almost all of my games physically unless I am strictly not given the option to buy it physically
Okay.
because I have to buy it
Now,
physically because I have to have that disc. It's got to be preserved.
now I'm not talking about stuff like GameStop or Best Buy. I'm talking about like
Yeah.
locally owned stores, like something called the Game Room or Video
Mhm.
Game World, stuff like that.
Yeah, not I guess not exactly a shout out, but a shout out to No Limit Gaming. They're my local game store. They primarily specialize in like card games. They do a lot of stuff for Yu-Gi-Oh, which I play Yu-Gi-Oh. Yes, I still play Yu-Gi-Oh in 2023. Imagine. And yeah, I go there because they have a lot of really interesting finds and really interesting games you can get for really cheap, and I love it. They do trade-ins, like it's just I like going there. It's a nice atmosphere, and of course while I'm there, I can also pick up any Yu-Gi-Oh cards I need or want.
You said
Usually
no.
want.
You said No Limit Gaming.
Yeah, No Limit Gaming. It's yeah, and there's a couple other like quite a few other places near me. There's one called Gamers Paradise. There's a lot of places like that are just really solid, locally owned, operated game stores that have just solid selection of games and are really really fun to go to, browse around, and sometimes you can find some really cool rare stuff, like old that Gamers Paradise place. I think I got one of my Guitar Hero guitars from, because I play Guitar Hero quite a bit, and Guitar Hero guitars are surprisingly difficult to come by. Well, kind of. It's weird. Functioning ones are hard to come by, and
Yeah.
so getting able to try them in person first before buying them is a really rare treat. Then one that I very much value.
Yeah, looking at pictures now, it's really cool. They have like dragon heads on the wall.
Maybe I'm not sure which one you're looking at. There could be other
Oh
ones
yeah,
in
they
other
could be.
states.
Yeah,
But
probably.
yeah, it's a really good place. And so and also I play D&D as well, so like I've got a lot of investment in seeing local game stores succeed, because you want to have a place to duel with Yu-Gi-Oh, you want to have a place to play Dungeons and Dragons, like yeah, always support your LGS no matter what.
Oh
I don't
yes.
care if they, and even then, it's like you're like, oh, but their prices are higher. And I have never seen a local game store that has had like higher prices than a GameStop or anything. They know how to compete. Stop making excuses and give them your money.
You ever see the prices for like really old games for like PS2, PS1, and sometimes they keep them in glass cases, but the prices are
Mhm.
jacked up.
It depends. Like sometimes, yeah, even better is like when you have a local game store that isn't like super sure of what they have, and you'll have times where you'll find some really interesting old stuff that's like $2-3, and you're like, yeah, this is easily $30+ on eBay, and so things like that.
Almost all the Armored Core games physically is over $100.
hmm Yeah, 'cause weren't a lot of them not even released outside of Japan, or were they all released outside of Japan? And I'm just dumb.
I don't know. I've never played them. I
Mhm.
never looked into them.
Yeah, I just know that once people were like, "Hey, From Software knows what they're doing. We should buy more of their stuff." And so, but yeah,
Curse of Darkness is actually a $80 game, and thankfully
oh,
I still have my copy from when I was a child. So thankfully I didn't have to buy it at that price. I did have to rebuy
good
Castlevania
goodness.
Lament of Innocence, but that was only $25-$30.
Hmm. Yeah, the some of the like old games. I mean, for me, I'd say the most now expensive old game that I have in my collection is probably Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver.
Hmm.
They were the Johto remakes that came out in 2010. And I don't know what it was, but apparently, I mean, I guess it does have to do with the community perception of them being the best remakes, if not the best Pokemon games of all time. And so these remakes, like when I got my copies, I paid $60 each for them, which they were 9, 10-year-old games at that point. So 60 paying new game price for a 10-year-old game is pretty whack. But nowadays they go for like 200, 250. I've seen some pretty gnarly prices around, and that's just for one copy. So if you want to get Heart Gold and Soul Silver, you got to be willing to shell out like half a grand just because you want these. Now, granted, I haven't checked the prices; they could have gone down, but during the kind of nostalgic game boom that we seem to have recently gone through, especially during COVID, that was a lot of old nostalgic games were jacked up in price because people were buying them. They're like, oh, I'm locked at home and I want to relive a part of my childhood back when things didn't suck so much.
There's a place called Player's Choice, I think, in Myrtle Beach,
I
and
think I bought cards from them online before. That
uh,
sounds familiar.
yes, it's Player's Choice. And what's funny is the location is really cool. It's in a post-COVID mall, where
Oh.
and like there's like nothing. It's like there's a lot of abandoned stores in there
Mhm,
because they couldn't afford to pay the rent or whatever, the
mhm.
space. And so this game store is right in the middle of this just dark mall. Like everything's poorly lit, and
Amazing.
they have this other room that they keep their arcade machines in. So it's got like little beads that dangle down. You got to go through to enter the little room with all the
Oh man.
arcade cabinets. And I was
Yeah,
like,
you're not
oh
going to
man.
play arcade games. You're going to get sacrificed to Satan, bud. Don't know what to tell you there.
And inside the store, they had pinball machines. The only one that was free to play was the South Park. That's one of my favorite pinball machines. That one, I played that one for a good while while I was there.
And I love pinball machines. There's something so nice and visceral about like the the kind of interaction of a physical and partially digital game, but the physical interaction of being able to hit the ball around and whatnot. There was something very, very fun and satisfying about
Oh
pinball. I had
yeah.
a big stint there when I was back when I was in California, where I was playing a whole lot of pinball, and I would play at our local mall. We had this place that was called Boomers. I'd play there a bunch, and they just had pinball machines on pinball machines. And this place was it was just super cool. And I remember I got kind of like really into it to where I was like not setting high scores, obviously, but setting things that were getting pretty close to like the top tens, and that was a pretty proud moment for someone who'd been playing for only a couple months. Yeah, I was pretty happy because I was learning all of like the strategies and the techniques, and yeah, there was something otherworldly about pinball. It's a pure expression of skill. I think it's what that's one of those things that I think a lot of games nowadays, especially with the modernization of gaming, can never really replicate is the pureness in skill expression that a lot of older games had, where it's like it's just you, whatever your means of controlling something are, and your objectives. Figure out how you're gonna win, and it's so nice. It's so satisfying. I really wish that there was a way that we could tap into more games and more types of games that are able to have that pure expression of skill. I think that's why whenever people say, "Oh, physical games are dead," playing just the Yu-Gi-Oh TCG that's gonna have to die out because digital card games are replacing it, or it's or pinball arcades, things like that. They're gonna have to die out because they've been replaced by video games. I think there's something about the nothing but you and the skill you bring to the table of arcade games and card games and even stuff like tabletops like Dungeons and Dragons that will never cease to be satisfying or enjoyable to some part of our primal monkey brain.
Have you ever been to an arcade auction?
I have never been to it, but I've definitely wanted to go. Oh, it looks like it's such an interesting thing because I'd like to own my own pinball table someday, and or refurbish one and learn how they work on the inside, be able to do maintenance on them. This would be super cool.
Yeah,
But no, I have never gone to an auction.
there's a couple that I go to every once in a while. Like there's one that happens in Winston Salem, North Carolina. That one's closer to me, and then there's one that happens in Sevierville, Tennessee.
Hmm.
The next one is in Sevierville, Tennessee, April. Wait, hold on. Sorry, got my months mixed up. What's the? Actually, the next one happens tomorrow in
Oh
Sevierville,
no!
Tennessee.
Go 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 go!
Yeah, and then the one after that is also in Sevierville, Tennessee on October 14th, and then it's back in Winston Salem, November 18th.
Hmm.
It's a very interesting setup. My father took me when I was young. He took me to several different ones. I don't know how he found out about the other ones, but it's of course it's a big room. They have all the arcade and pinball machines lined up. Plus they got mystery boxes, which I really
Mhm.
like. Because one year I bought my first item, and it was a box filled with like arcade gaming guides and sim games. It had the Sims 2, the Sims 3, and the original Sims.
Oh
And
wow!
actually someone else was battling me for it, but I ended up getting it for $30, the whole thing. And once someone walked up to me and they were like, "Hey, can I get the Sims 3 from you by any chance? With all the, if you don't mind, can I buy the DLCs as well?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, sure." So I was like, "Is $30 okay?" So I made my money back in 5 minutes.
Oh yeah! Amazing, truly fantastic.
It's if you want to look for pinball machines for sale, that's the place to go.
So what you're telling me is that you were a businessman doing business. Oh, that's great.
um, yeah, man. Did I ever tell you what happened to my PSP?
No, I've never heard that story.
Oh, dramatic. It's one of the saddest moments I ever had in gaming.
Oh
Okay.
man, I am already scared.
All right, so I had a PSP. The original PSP is not the PS Vita. So I took this thing everywhere. It was my best friend. I'd done things on it. Some, well, just all kinds of stuff. All kinds
Is there
of stuff.
is there any way to salvage this sentence? Just think about that before you say your next words.
Any-
I saw some things with that PSP, man.
oh yeah, I definitely entered some areas on. But anyway, yeah, the PSP was just a blast. It was an incredible device to carry with me. It was, of course, before a smartphone. I didn't, it was my smartphone before smartphone because I would even use Skype on it. Um, and so one day, my father decided to have a woman move in with her, with him, and she had two boys of her own.
Oh no,
And
I don't like this story already.
and and so that was already an awkward situation because the the younger boy was kind of unhinged and very sensitive, and so unfortunately his father, um, he deleted himself,
That's not good.
and I didn't know that.
Oh no.
So
Oh no.
we were just, I think he was mad at me for something. I don't even remember why he was mad at me. And then I just said that I was his dad. Just
Oh no. Oh no.
I don't know, it just doesn't really sound that bad, but anyway.
Oh no. You appear to have made a grave mistake.
It's like, how dare you say that? So he just kind of just walks away. And anyway, like maybe an hour or so later, I noticed, I was like, dang, did I misplace my PSP? It was right here.
Oh boy.
And so it's just gone. And I knew something was up because, but anyway, the next day at school at lunch, I think it's been a week and it's been missing, and I'm like, I'm going crazy. And then my sister finally decides to tell me that he beat it with a rock and threw it into the pond in the woods.
Alrighty then.
Yeah, and yeah.
Well, I was wondering what your definition of unhinged was. That sounds pretty freaking unhinged to me, brother.
And so,
Oh boy.
yeah, I was upset for a long time about that. And my father eventually bought me a PS Vita, but just the PSP was destroyed and thrown into the pond with my copy of God of War: Chains of Olympus in it.
Ooh.
And in fact, I actually still have that case of God of War: Chains of Olympus. It just doesn't have the UMD in it.
Man, that is, wow. That is that is certainly a life event. That is core memory unlocked, I guess. Not saying it's a good one, but it's certainly one of them.
His mother, she bought me the PS3 with God of War 3, so it really that helped out a lot.
Yeah, wow, that sounds pretty gnarly. Not gonna lie, I as I've I think mentioned in a couple of like videos and stream and like podcasts, is that I was very very behind when it came to a lot of gaming in the 2000s. I started gaming on the GameCube. I got the Wii, and then that was all I had. And then also a couple of the Nintendo handhelds, and that was all I had as far as consoles went for years. And I just was like, I'm just not going to get into console gaming. And then of course, when I went to college, it was actually my now wife was girlfriend said, hey, your birthday's coming up. I'm going to get you do you like Xbox or PlayStation more? It's like, I don't really play either, but just if you had to choose, said, I guess PlayStation. There's a couple interesting games there. Cool, I'm sending a PlayStation to your dorm. It's like, what? It was shortly after the PS4 had come out. It was crazy. So yeah, and yes, and I'm sure that sequence of events of then girlfriend, now wife, that PS4 purchase has something to do with it, I'm sure. But yeah, that was pretty much where I really started getting into console gaming, kind of realizing, there's a lot of merits to, like, using a controller, and there's something uh, very natural feeling about, sitting with a couple of friends on a couple of bean bags playing Call of Duty together, as college dorm mates. Like, it feels very correct. Not sitting at separate computers yelling across the room at each other. Nah, all sitting on bean bags. Everybody's laughing. Everybody's mad at each other because somebody's using the noob tube. Like, all that stuff. That's what consoles were made for. And so it kind of got me to appreciate consoles.
Do you have any memorable like overnight gaming memories that you have?
No, I actually don't. Surprisingly, like, well, for myself, because like the only times I really played games overnight were mainly when I was a lot younger, when I started MapleStory. Like, I was 13 when I started playing MapleStory. I would play that late into the night, early into the morning sometimes, without knowledge of parents, and some friends that I met there. Some long grinding leveling sessions. First time I ever hit level 100, I remember, was during one of those long nights. But other than that, no. I mean, staying up late to play video games was strictly forbidden in our house, because video games were gonna corrupt you and they're gonna make you fail at school. And so, yeah,
It's one
that
of the,
was.
I think it's so funny whenever like people older, people that are older than you, or at least of course when you're growing up, or being around people that are, of course, you would consider them the elders, and they would say stuff like, "You shouldn't play video games; they're a waste of time," and then they continue watching TV for another 3-5 hours.
Yeah, no, the generational divide between video games is super interesting to me. Like, it's one of those things that I really do wish that there was more understanding, and that the media wasn't so inflammatory about. But what is the media if it's not being inflammatory? It can't lose all relevance at once, right? It only has to lose most of its relevance, every couple days. And so, um, but yeah, that was during the time of, video games are gonna make your kids violent, and your kids are gonna do, horrible crimes, or, not YouTube friendly, if they play video games, and all of these things. And it's like, and hear me out, they're gonna grow into relatively healthy, well-adjusted adults that enjoy a hobby just like anybody enjoys a hobby at any age. And my favorite one, of course, was, I don't know why you would want to get a degree that will help you work on video games. There's no money there. They said about the industry that now makes more money than Hollywood. But okay, sure, I guess there's no money there. So yeah, all the things that I was told, and I was force fed when I was younger about games that were just absolutely untrue. It's just fascinating to me, the stuff that they had the gall and the audacity to say, as if they could see the future, while simultaneously saying that print journalism was going to survive far into the future. That's a little joke, because I got a degree in print journalism, and print journalism did not survive far into the future.
Ouch.
uh, I got my degree in college. I majored in journalism. I was like, yeah, I'm a journalism major. And then I was like, all right, let's go look for jobs. Oh, there's no jobs in this. Oh, it's either nepotism or nothing. It's like Nerf, but with journalism. It's either Nerf or nothing. Nah, man, it's nepotism or nothing with journalism.
My
You're either. Oh, kidding.
oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say, you either have a friend or a family, or a friend of a friend or a family friend who already works in the industry, and that's how you find yourself a journalism career, or you can go kick rocks. Those are your two options.
My wife got 2 bachelor's degrees in forensics studies, and got her dream job, but apparently the people, like a woman there, didn't like her, and so she framed her for tampering with evidence. and
Oh my
they
gosh.
fired her, and ever since then she hasn't tried getting back into the field, a field that she studied so hard with and got 2 bachelor's degrees of.
Wow.
uh,
That sounds horrifically petty.
yeah, she never really fully recovered from that. She to this day, she's
You know, I'd have a hard time trusting people after that kind of thing. Let's be honest.
yeah.
Like, man, like, hey, yeah, you're a journalist and you've done good things, but oh, this person doesn't like you. Therefore, we're going to frame you and say that all of your evidence for this story was faked, and that actually they found the real evidence, and then they're going to publish it, and then they're going to frame you for plagiarism, and then you're going to get fired. Like, bro, straight up uncool.
Yeah, she just bought a house too. Yeah,
Ooh, that is rough.
yeah, she didn't even get a chance to sleep in the house.
Oh, that is rough and a half.
Oh, yeah. So, oof.
The cat has elected that my stomach is the designated sleeping surface right now. So that's fine. Just you do what you do, you boo. Okay. I named this cat Cygnus after Empress Cygnus from Maple Story, because she is a little empress who is in complete control over our house after less than a week of being here.
One thing I really wanted to talk about was the word perfection in video games. Like whenever someone says something like, "Well, it's not perfect," or whenever someone's reviewing a game or something like that, they're like, "Well, the game's not perfect." But I'm like, "Well, what exactly is perfect? I mean, do we, what kind of? Yeah, everybody
Yeah.
has their own version of perfect, but what is?" Should someone express what they feel is perfect? That way, someone can have some kind of idea of what they're comparing it to. Because if if perfection is subjective, then shouldn't we address what the person reviewing the particular game? Should they establish their standards and what game holds that standard for them personally? You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I wouldn't say that using the term perfection is like bad journalism or whatever, or not exactly a good faith review. But I do think that there is some degree of like maybe there is a better way to word and describe something than oh it's perfect. I think that there is a better way to express how you think or how you feel about a experience than it's perfect. What about it was perfect? Was the gameplay perfect? For you, a game with a good level with great level design might be perfect, even if the story was mediocre and the combat was all right. If the level design kept you playing for hours and hours, maybe that's your perfect game. Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Then for me, a perfect game is something that gives me both a simple premise to understand while having so much mechanical complexity that I could see myself playing it for years to come. Or a perfect game, and even then, like perfect within your own standards can change, year over year. My perfect games, like Dishonored has always been a perfect game for me because it's a game with a simple premise. Hey, stab the dudes, get to the objective. But the way it can be executed is pretty much limitless. How many blinks can you chain together is what the real title of that game should be called. How many stabs can you chain together? How many creative ways do you think you could use explosions? How many people can you kill in 3 seconds with only one grenade and a crossbow bolt? Like the world is your oyster. Those are that's what makes a perfect game to me. But some people that just don't vibe with it, and they're like, yeah, I just don't really see it. And I'm like, okay, well, what's your perfect game? And theirs is an RPG that gives them endless role play options. Baldur's Gate 3 just came out. That's probably some people's perfect game. It's got a boatload of role play. It's got everything that a lot of people would want. A lot of D&D fans are obviously happy because it's D&D, and so yeah, what is a perfect game, and is that a really valid or a good criticism to leverage during a review of a game, or is it a helpful criticism to give, or not criticism, is that a helpful review of a game to say it's perfect? Like, okay, well, something tells me it's not perfect. There's got to be at least one bug in there, because if it's got a
Mm-hmm.
bug, then objectively, if we're talking purely objectively, then it's not perfect because it's got a bug, or heck, even if there's no bugs in it, what if the developer wanted to do more and that just, budget constraints? So they had to cut an area that they were really excited about. The game's not perfect to them now, even though everybody else says it's perfect.
So, I wonder whenever someone says it's not perfect, I wonder if they really mean it's not the best thing I've experienced.
Yeah, I think that it's not perfect is a way of saying I wish there was more, or I saw the potential that they failed to execute on,
Mm-hmm.
or that they executed on in a way that left me wanting. Is probably the way I would describe the kind of the sigh. It wasn't perfect. That's because that's probably how I would describe Maple Story. Oh, what's Maple Story to you? It's not perfect, obviously. Yeah, but you play that game literally like 2 hours a day, every day of the week, bro. Yeah, but it's not perfect.
Yeah.
So pick one, dude. Do you like it or not?
See, I like having two separate categories. I have one category where I put games that I consider close to perfection, and then I have another category that's my favorite games. There are two, they're the lists are not the same. They're pretty different. Like on my close to perfection list on the top, it kind of switches back and forth. Is Sekiro and The Last of Us. I consider those games like just I find very little problems with them. And
that is moi chef's kiss.
Yes, I like
Mamma mia.
The thing is, Sekiro is not my favorite From Software game, but it's the one I feel like it's executed the best and has the less amount of flaws, and it does its own thing very very well. And
what's your favorite?
My favorite From Software?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's Elden Ring.
Elden Ring? Okay, cool, yeah. Because I know you're very, like, not in a bad way, but you criticize Elden Ring a lot, but I was like, I feel like it comes out of a place of love, not a place of,
yeah.
Of like, wow, this game is so close to perfect. Why did they just go this extra inch to make it perfect?
Exactly, and plus, whenever you expose a lot more problems when you use restrictions, but here's one thing I find very very wild is the Godskin duo. It is so incredibly flawed that I love it.
Fuck the Godskin duo. All my homies hate the Godskin duo.
It's so strange. I feel like I love all the bosses that have something broken about them. I guess because it just makes them interesting. Like the Fire Giant. The Fire Giant he's got problems. I mean,
Hell Sponge to Oblivion. I've heard.
The what now?
The Fire Giant being a health sponge to Oblivion being one of his biggest problems. He's just so spongy. You're like, why am I dealing like 20,000 damage? Help.
I talked about this on the Matthew Manny podcast about how a lot of bosses in Elden Ring have a health balancing issue where they have more health where they shouldn't and have less health where they shouldn't. Like Radon, his health for his third phase is way too low. And his health for his first phase is way too high, and there needs to be some kind of balancing where he can experience more of his third phase because of course he gets more aggressive in his third phase. I feel like the few bosses that actually have very well balanced health is probably maybe Margot, even though people complain about his low amount of health, but when you use weaker weapons, he's actually very well balanced, I feel. And let's see. I'm sorry, it's been a few months since I played Elden Ring actually because I've been doing other things.
I was playing a lot of Elden Ring on my Steam Deck. Surprisingly, it runs surprisingly well on the Steam Deck. It's very very good how it runs. But yeah, that's where I've been playing most of my Elden Ring because with all my obligations and everything. I end up I'm like, well, I'm going to be downstairs. I'm going to be away from my computer, so I guess I'm going to play this on the Steam Deck.
The game that had the throne before Elden Ring, actually, Elden Ring tops. It sits on the top as my favorite game of all time. But the game that used to be on that throne was Dark Souls, and before Dark Souls, I think was Shadow of the Colossus, and before that was Castlevania Symphony of the Night. So it's been quite a long run.
Yeah, that's fair to say.
Because it's just, I mean, it's not like it. I mean, of course I love Dark Souls 2, Bloodborne, Sekiro, Dark Souls 3, but there's just something about Elden Ring that really just kind of enhanced everything I loved about Dark Souls 1, and just I feel like I could just play Elden Ring forever and not have to buy anything else. And
Mhm.
whenever I tell people that, I realize that this is like Facebook and Reddit. People are sensitive and they don't really, they just kind of jump to conclusions too much.
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah. No, that's very true, and I really hate that about video game discourses where like people can't are afraid to like things or not like things because of how popular they are. Like, one of my least favorite things, and this is probably going to win me so many fans, is I think Fortnite is a wonderfully designed, really good game, but because it's
hmm.
popular, people hate it. It's Fortnite is the Justin Bieber of our generation. It's not actually all that offensive. If you listen to it, it can be kind of catchy, and you might even find a few songs you like. But because it's popular, you're legally obligated to hate
I
it.
I really don't know a whole lot about it. I just know it's popular, so I don't really know how good it is in terms of design.
Yeah, I think it does well to remedy a lot of, game design things and make for a really fun, just kind of pick up and play and a fun game to dick around with friends on. Like,
Yeah.
it's good. And I see why it is popular, and I don't fault anybody if they were, anybody from any age bracket, not like, oh, it's a little kid's game. How many games I'm playing Maple Story. I'm not allowed to tell anybody that their game is a kid's game. I am playing a
Yeah.
game with 2D chibi pixel art. Like, come on, guys.
Oh yeah, I mean, I still play a lot of kid games. Like, I play Frogun. I mean, it looks like a game that's for kids.
Well,
Overcooked, moving
it
out.
looks like it, but Frogun is deliberately trying to target us as the audience, people that are in their mid 20s, early 30s, who are looking for PS1 nostalgia. I actually saw it today at GameStop. I almost picked it up, but I didn't have my
Oh,
wallet with me. Yeah, I saw it on the PS5 version or the PS4, I think. I don't know what version.
you
Yeah,
know,
I did see it, and I do want to pick it up. Next time I go to GameStop, I'm absolutely gonna
well,
grab that.
a sequel's coming out this year.
Huh. Well, that sounds like all the more reason to grab it.
So that's I forgot about it actually. So yeah, that's another one I'm anticipating. I just keep forgetting about it because it's just it's not out yet because the developer announced it at the beginning of the year.
Hmm.
But I thought it was a DLC, but the developer said that it's a totally just a totally new game.
Yeah, no, I definitely do want to pick that. I'll probably get it for a console just because I feel like the pure, to really get that retro nostalgia feel, playing
Oh,
it on a couch with a controller is going to be the real deal instead of
Fro
playing it on my PC.
Frogun hits all those excellent notes. I know I praise it every podcast, but I just when I play it, it feels like I'm a kid again playing a game that's well designed. It's not trying to, you know, jump
Sell
on
you
top of
something.
all the mainstream. It's not trying to jump onto the mainstream tropes. It's trying to be a game. It's not trying to
It's
be
fun.
any kind of heavy story focused thing that most AAA games want to do now. It gives you superb level design, solid platforming, and it has all kinds of awesome fun collectibles, and it does everything it wants to do correctly and amazingly. I mean, it does have quite a few bugs, but the game is so much fun that I just kind of you can just overlook it.
You kind of live with it. Yeah, it's not like AAA games where you're like, wow, they paid this much money for a graphics engine and they forgot to bug test. Amazing.
Yeah.
But when the graphics look like that, you're like, yeah, this is probably like a couple dudes in their basement making a game and trying to scrape by. I'm amazed that it doesn't set my PC on fire. I love it.
Yeah, Wolverine's Revenge. I'm having a blast playing that now, but it's been filled with bugs. Like just there was one mission where I had to sneak around and killing soldiers, and I went to go into this one particular area to sneak up on another guy, and Wolverine just fell right through the floor and died.
Hell yeah, dude. Bro, that's one of Wolverine's superpowers. Is
Yeah.
occasionally he just forgets he no clips out of reality, falls into the back rooms, dude.
Yeah, that's where he meets Deadpool.
Yeah, that's how it works.
You know,
Look at this guy doesn't know the superhero comic lore. Wow, what a loser.
I'm not the biggest Deadpool fan, but I do enjoy the movies to a certain degree. And I definitely cannot wait for him to see Wolverine. And apparently, they fight near the 20th Century Fox logo, according to leaked images. So I cannot wait to see how they handle that. Because apparently there's a comic where Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe, so I'm wondering if they're going with that angle.
Oh dear
Where
goodness.
where he kills the 20th Century Fox universe of Marvel, you know, the X-Men, X-Men, whatever. Maybe he'll kill Professor Xavier.
Man, goodness. I mean, hey, that would get a bugbear off their shoulder. They'd probably be like, okay, finally, we can stop floundering and trying to figure out what the hell we're going to do with X-Men.
Man, I'm wondering if Marvel's ever going to get back up. Because apparently Secret Invasion is like one of their worst rated shows.
I've heard that everything Marvel, I mean, it's just kind of Disney as a whole right now is sort of Disneying super hard, and they've adopted some very interesting business strategies. Losing money is the strategy.
That whole Snow White thing has got people. Almost got everybody upset, because especially the dwarf community, they're not hiring dwarves for dwarf roles, and it's just they're taking jobs away from dwarves because of some kind of they think it's offensive to hire dwarves for dwarf roles.
Hey, this is what I'm not sure if this is. You can edit it out if it gets too political, whatever. But that's what performative wokeness gets you. Is if you try to just be like, yeah, we're gonna be so woke, we're gonna be diverse. You're literally never gonna be able to make anybody happy. You cannot make the woke community happy. You cannot make the people that do not like the woke community happy. That nobody will ever be happy. Do not do it. That is what we in the industry. That is what we like to call a trap. Don't do it.
Yeah, and that's it's probably about as far as I'll get on here when it comes to politicalness. It's just just stating what's happening with media simply. I just don't want to mention anything further than that. Like apparently Spider-Man 2 was taken off the Saudi Arabia store for whatever reason. I mean, we don't know anything yet until the game comes out. I mean,
let's be fair. It's probably because it has a black protagonist or something. Like,
yeah.
If it wasn't that, I guarantee there was a gay flag somewhere. Those are the absolutely going to be the two things.
Probably.
That is probably what we got taken off the server.
I made a Spider-Man 2 title card with the pride flag. Like I got a transparent Spider-Man 2 logo with a transparent Spider-Man and Miles Morales and put them on front of a pride flag.
Beautiful.
And I'm like,
a beautiful thing.
And I posted it to my little Facebook group chat. I was like, hey, check it out. Spider-Man 2's woke. That was banned in Saudi Arabia.
That's how it works. It's got to be it. Yeah. There's actually, I guess, kind of a solid question to go into because you had mentioned it there briefly. Is where do you think that what is it, or not win, but what do you think was the quote-unquote old game charm that was kind of lost somewhere along the way in a lot of gaming? How you said you were playing Wolverine something, and you said you're having a blast. It's old, it's janky, it's buggy as hell, but you're having fun because it's a game that wants to be a game. Frogun, you said, is a very deliberate homage to PS1 games, and it plays, and it feels like a game. And I think that the talking point I want to get to there is that actually the almost too funny to be true answer to all of this of like, man, why is it so hard for people to have a good time with video games? Is it because video games forgot that they're video games? Is that what happened?
I just think story gets in the way. That's what I think, because it's just I'm always constantly annoyed whenever I walk 10 feet and a cutscene triggers every time.
Mm-hmm.
And I like Days Gone, but that happens a lot where a cutscene ends, I can start playing again. I walk 10 steps, cutscene starts once again, and I just
You're like, my guy, I'd like to play the game, sir.
Yeah, and the one thing that I like about Frogun and Wolverine's Revenge is that it shows a cutscene. You play for an hour or so, another cutscene starts. Cutscene might be maybe a few minutes, and then you're back to playing the game again. And it's not just intrusive all the time, like it is with most games. Like Final Fantasy 16, I enjoy it, but I'm not gonna play it again because the story just gets in the way. I'm not gonna replay it just so I can see all that again. I mean, if I could have the choice to cut out all the story and just experience the combat, most definitely I would be replaying it. But if I have to see the characters, if I have to walk around and talk to NPCs every single playthrough, I don't want it. Now, with the
Yeah,
that's why I like the
I,
From Software games so much because I mean, if I have to interact with the NPC, it's only for maybe a minute, and then I can
besides
just
they're gonna
continue.
die in a couple hours anyway, so like, what do
Yeah,
you matter?
you can
It's a
either
FromSoft game. They're probably dead.
talk to them or you can just kill them and just get the items and move along. I mean, that's the great freedom of the From Software games and one reason why I really love them because the story doesn't get in the way and you can just press on
Yeah,
and do whatever you want. And then you got
yeah,
games like Red Dead Redemption 2 where you just everything holds you back, holds your hand, and wants to make sure you're doing everything the developers want you to see, and it doesn't give you any freedom even though they promote it heavily.
yeah. It's it is a thing because like I for one am a huge fan of like video game narrative and story, and I think we've come a long ways. But if anything, yeah, I think you do have some point where maybe we've overshot a little bit in video game narrative
Mm-hmm.
where there's too much now. We went from games having no story or really like contrived boring stories to like, okay, I would is this a movie or a game? Could you guys make up your mind? Because I am falling asleep, sir. And like there are times that I feel like there's exposition and there's things that that should be packaged within the game's world. That's like as we like to talk about FromSoft a lot. I think that's one of their biggest strengths and the biggest thing that they have consistently done right across every game is that they don't push story exposition in your face. They scatter story. They let you learn about the game's world and story as naturally as the character you are playing as. If you didn't see it or experience it, you won't know about it
Mm-hmm.
unless you saw it. And like the closest you could get to information you wouldn't have is stuff you could read in like loading screen tips. Maybe that's it though. Is
Yeah.
a occasional loading screen on what are usually fast load screens, um, and very few and far between in Elden Ring because it's really only when you fast travel now. Is like the only thing that actually makes you wait on a screen. So you have so much stuff like you can see and do and learn. Just wherever you go, you're gonna learn things, and you're gonna it trusts the viewer's intelligence, and I think that might be another kind of clue or a fragment of our what we're looking for of like where did video games kind of not fall off. Obviously, I still love gaming and everything, and I love a lot of modern games, but where does that old game charm come from? And I think that having that trusting the viewer's intelligence, I think it's kind of the same thing that a lot of people have expressed with modern cinema. Is a lot of modern cinema feels very dumb. It's like, okay, this is for you to watch popcorn, brain off, and just if you're not following the story, it's okay. Something's gonna explode in 5 minutes. Um, and instead, hey, what if we made a movie that made you think or question your own views about society or things in your life that may not be all that great? uh that's a concept, and be like, nah, we don't want to be challenged. We just want something that we can brain off. Popcorn please. And like there's a time and a place for that. There's games that I think there's games that I think are better for being brain off, popcorn please kind of games, where everything's explained to you and the story is over the top and cheesy and hilarious. But I think that is a huge part. Is it FromSoft's games and their stories trust your intelligence to be able to figure things out based on what you've seen. When
Mm-hmm.
you see, a half submerged village and when you see like a destroyed village and then you see a dragon nearby, they trust that you're going to go, oh, the dragon killed the people here. Oh, that's why it's abandoned. Or like Sin the Slumbering Dragon and the whole Shulva Dark Souls 2 thing. Like, oh, he's a poison dragon. This whole city's. Did this dragon poison an entire city? Hello? And, that kind of thing. It's like they trust you to figure that out. And there's nothing wrong with that. There really shouldn't be anything wrong with the game saying, yeah, we trust that you can look at the stuff we give you, whether it be information or whether it be um, item descriptions, and that you can put the pieces together because you're a big kid now. And yeah, I think that is where a lot of games have faltered. They're like, oh, but what if somebody doesn't like it because they didn't really get the story? I've rarely, I feel like I hear the story was meh as a less and less as a reason for not liking the game, a game over the gameplay was garbage.
That would be I'm just now thinking that would be so funny if there was a game where there was a villain that was so powerful that if you don't act fast enough, he destroys the whole world. And then the game ends, and then you got to figure out how to stop him. Like a dragon. The dragon's destroying everything, and the dragon keeps getting more powerful. And if you decide not to do anything, he just blows up the whole world.
There's actually hilariously on that idea. There's a Skyrim mod called End Times, where you preset when you start your game. You set a specific time in like in-game days, and if you don't complete the main story by that time, it completely ends the game. Has this big cinematic world-ending cutscene of like fire coming from the sky and Alduin, the big black dragon, like showing up in the sky and raining down fire from above, and then it deletes your save.
Wow.
And it's so cool because you're like, it is, especially when you're playing Skyrim with a whole bunch of like combat and difficulty and mods that affect the world scaling, and you're like, okay, so I need to do this fast. I need to do my quest quickly. I need to and also especially survival mods on top of that, I need to plan my travel routes. Like, I have to really, really think about everything I'm doing. It totally overhauls the game without actually touching any of the core gameplay. All of a sudden, you're just thinking more, and you're just using your brain more. Because holy moly, he wasn't kidding when he said he's here to destroy the world, and now he's gonna do it.
Yeah, there's so much potential in video games, and it kind of sucks. It really sucks when no one's really trying anything. There's no risks hardly anymore. There's nothing like new saying, "Oh, this video game is going to do this." It got a lot of empty promises now. Like, it's funny. Wolverine's Revenge has smarter AI than Ghost of Tsushima.
Oh goodness.
Because I was playing it, and the AI is just picking up on my sounds and what I'm doing. And I'm like, how come I can slip up in Wolverine's Revenge and get brutally just attacked, but because I was too loud, and it's not like I was right up against them. But in Ghost of Tsushima, I can be brutally murdering enemies on one side of the fence, but when I go to the other side, the enemies are just sitting there sipping tea. What sense does that make?
We got the old Skyrim classic: shoot somebody in the eye with an arrow. Huh, must have been the wind. Dude, you have an arrow protruding through your skull. Must have been the wind.
A lot of people bash. For some reason, people bash the gameplay in The Last of Us, but the AI is really smart in The Last of Us. I mean, it could be better, but it's the best that I've seen. And compared to other games that a lot of people put a lot of praise in. And I get very confused when people say, "Oh yeah, there's like no gameplay in The Last of Us." I'm like, what are you talking about? It's like they're playing a totally different game.
Yeah. Were the guns and zombies not? Was that not enough? Do we need more than guns and zombies? Hello?
I'm just wondering. I'm like, whenever someone says that, I'm like, did you just play on easy mode and you just walk right through and didn't do anything? Because there's a lot of stuff in these encounters that you can do and find and figure out. Especially, that's why I always recommend grounded mode. I'm not saying go in there and not use any kind of bullets or anything like that, but grounded mode has a lot of very interesting things. Like, they take away mechanics like I think listen, where you can see enemies through the walls. I mean, it gets rid of the heads up display. It reduces the amount of bullets you can have. So you do have to be very careful about how many bullets you use, because sometimes it kind of will lock you in. Like, let's just say the first time I played grounded mode and I got to the bloater, I have no ammunition. So
Oh goodness,
you do
not
need to be
fun.
careful about how much ammo you use. Right now, whenever I do play grounded mode, if I only use ammo if I absolutely have to, because I'm just worried I might get locked in somewhere where I have to use ammo but I can't.
But on that topic specifically, as you know, talking about The Last of Us and the what I assume is the hardest difficulty, grounded mode. Um, that the my last video, it's also been a month for me, but where I talked about where a lot of gameplay is hidden behind this horrible moniker of hard mode, and I think that it does a bit of a disservice to dissuade players from playing the best part of the game or experiencing the best part of gameplay,
Mm-hmm.
is by saying, oh well, this is hard mode, I don't think that you're quite ready to play this on your first try. And it's like, what maybe they're not correct. Yes, you're a game, right? So maybe we should learn some mechanics, some stuff. We should improve a little bit. Like I understand, games with selectable difficulties having lower difficulties for accessibility and whatnot. I think that it's accessibility is important enough. Not everybody is going to be insane at games. And some people, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
they do want to win, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to win. In the once again, in the wise words of video game donkey, sometimes you want to sit down and play a game without getting your dick knocked off. uh, and but at the same time, I think that a lot of people, because normal mode, oh well, normal is the average, that is the supposed to play on difficulty, gets in the way of where the actual good gameplay is
Mm-hmm.
in hard and and beyond. And like I said in my video, I think that most games are balanced around hard or even the highest difficulty, because the same people that will say, oh yeah, no, games are probably balanced around normal, this isn't like a slight or anything, or saying they're wrong, this is just an observation. But a lot of people will say, yeah, I think it's normal. I doubt a small poll, it got like, I don't know how many votes, but not a ton. But most of the votes were saying, yeah, most games are balanced around normal difficulty, when I firmly believe that they're balanced around hard or very hard and beyond. Because you've heard of the consumable problem. I talked about that a bit, where gamers will say, oh, what if I need this later? Ooh, what if I need this later? Oh, I don't really want to use this now. But what if I get stuck without this and I really need it? If it's available to you, use it, because if you're playing on a harder difficulty, it's gonna make you use it.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yep.
harder difficulty is gonna say, like, like in The Last of Us, you said grounded mode. So in the normal difficulties, it's supposed to be a desperate struggle of survival. Um, but all of the shooting and the combat is, like you're saying, people are saying it's piss easy and it doesn't have any real gameplay to it. All of a sudden, you're ungrounded. You're counting how many bullets you have in your clip. You have no HUD. You're counting each shot you take. You're paying attention to sounds and noises in the environment, not just looking for a little indicator in your HUD. You're like trying to actively listen. You're freaked out because you don't know what is near you anymore. Like, that is what games are trying to evoke in you. Just crank up that difficulty. I promise that you'll have a good time. Even games that are supposed to be power fantasies get better when you crank up that difficulty,
Oh yeah.
because hmm?
Oh no, I was just agreeing.
Yeah, like Spider-Man, I was playing Miles Morales a bit when I was making that video, and I was playing it on, I think, spectacular difficulty, which is, I think, the highest or the second highest. And it's you die to like one or two bursts of gunfire, but when you go these long combo streaks without getting touched by anything, you feel like an immortal god. You're like, I am so good at this game, and you feel like you are, you're doing something, you're achieving something. You feel like you're mastering mechanics. I'm using skills that seem super niche in like the when you're looking through the talent tree, you're like, why would I ever need that? But then all of a sudden you're playing on spectacular and you're like, oh, this is perfect for this exact situation. I need to use this now. It's those sorts of things that like really bring out the gameplay in games, and it's like, please just turn up your difficulty, everybody. Like whoever's listening to this, the next game you play, please turn your difficulty up one notch above what you are comfortable with, and then you can thank me later. Okay?
Well, I mean, I recommend people to adjust difficulties in many different ways, but these are usually the people that are saying stuff like, "Oh, well, this game's easy," or "That boss is easy." I'm like, "Well, have you ever considered this?" And then they just pretend that you didn't say anything. Like,
And like, well, no, obviously. Why would I play it on hard? That's hard. This is
yeah.
the first playthrough.
What?
Come on, guys.
I mean, isn't it ridiculous? Like, you'll just say, "Oh, yeah, it's too easy." Okay, well, let's make it harder and see what you find. Well, oh, well, I mean.
Well, yeah, but then what if it's hard? What if then I can't? Well, then learn. I don't know. Do something about it. Maybe I'll try to win.
I got the boss on my second try. Oh, okay. Well, how about do it without taking damage to see how many tries it takes? Well, I mean, that sounds like a waste of time.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah. Then of course there is the thing between like challenge running and games with a selectable difficulty. But I can still see the thing of that being said with like selectable difficulty games, and it still said, oh yeah, that was super easy. What did you play it on? Oh, I just played it on normal. What? What? Could you consider maybe trying that boss on anything harder? Maybe.
Yeah.
Like I'm over here. I played Destiny 2's Lightfall campaign on Legendary. I have never really played Destiny. I had no exotics, and I played the Legendary campaign. Do you know how many times I looked at that screen? I said, "Come on, just drop it down. Just drop down the difficulty. You're kind of a bitch. Just give in. Just give in. You're not gonna beat this." And then I did not put that difficulty down, and I ended up beating it. I wanted to die and I wanted to cry a little bit, but I beat it.
Now, there are some games where hard mode is just really, really bad.
Horrifically overtuned, yeah.
Like Twisted Metal, like, I mean, as much as I love the games, I can't play the PS1 games anymore. The control adapt time is way too high. It would take me so long just to get my hands adjusted to the wonkiness of the steering and the shooting. And I think I'd just rather leave it alone. As much as I hate to say it, I just rather play Twisted Metal Black or Twisted Metal for PS3, because the ones for PS1, I really cannot get into it these days. I mean, I as a kid it was fine because I guess I wasn't spoiled with smooth driving controls then.
We had no standards.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I just put up with it back then because that's all I had. But now, I mean, I tried studying Twisted Metal 1 just to see what I can salvage from it in terms of difficulty, but like I said, it's too chaotic. Really, the only way you can get through it in a less impact, in a way where you don't take as much damage is just to camp around, and that's not really fun. Because I looked up people playing it on hard, and all they do is they just drive to an area, they sit there and wait and shoot, and then that's it. It's just I don't know. It's not really that intriguing.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. And that's a very valid criticism for a lot of games hard modes, where the most viable strategy ends up being the most boring possible thing you can think of, and it's unfortunate. There's because higher difficulty is supposed to offer a different flavor of challenge. It's supposed to push you to engage with every mechanic of the game, but what it often devolves down into is only engaging with the one safest mechanic regardless of how long it takes. And so that's where you get, I remember, that sounds familiar. I don't know what game it was, but there was some game that I remember people saying that like the hard mode essentially turned into finding like a little spot that you can just cheese every enemy or cheese every boss from, and they can't reach you, and that's the only way to beat. I think it was Mega Man. I don't remember which boss or what. I never played through the Mega Mans, but there's this like glitch in the game where if you pause and then unpause after shooting like a laser at him, it will deal damage every frame the laser is in him instead of just the one frame where it hits him, because of how the laser itself is coded. And a lot of people are like, yeah, it's the only way to beat this boss without having an aneurysm. Like, come on. So, uh, it's pretty bad. That shouldn't exactly be your default strategy, is having to resort to an exploit to feel like something is playable without wanting to quit playing the game. Yeah, and I agree. I think that is the unfortunate reputation that a lot of higher difficulty has. Like, I give Skyrim's legendary difficulty a lot of flack for the same thing, where I showed a video clip of me wailing away at a bandit for like, it was 10 minutes or 5 minutes, something like that, and I sped it up 10 times to show how long it took, and it was still a half minute, a minute long video clip of me just whack 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 whack, and it's just smacking him over and over and over and over again every time he got a hit in, because the hits are pretty unavoidable in Skyrim. It's not like there's a dodge button unless you have the mods for it. You just pretty much turtle behind a shield, wait for him to go for an attack, you bash him with your shield, and then you attack him once, and you do that until he dies. Are we having fun yet? So yeah, it's miserable.
A lot of people, they keep thinking that I hate easy modes, and I'm totally against easy mode. But the thing is, I don't mind if there's easier difficulties, as long as there's a difficulty that's for me. Because developers go out of their way to make sure that everybody can play their game, but then they turn away people that want to experience more to the game on a technical level, which I find, very discouraging. They find every single way to make the game as easy as possible, but what about making it interesting and difficult? They want to bloat enemy health. They want to give you basic enemies with a ton of health that's not interesting to kill at all.
And then they call it a boss, and they're like, "What? What do you mean you don't like this boss? This is a great boss. The best boss we ever made."
Oh man,
it's got a boss health bar. How could you say it's not a boss?
I've turned
boss guys.
That's the great thing about another amazing thing about Elden Ring is that there are some enemies that are not bosses, but I've turned them into bosses because their movesets are really cool. I don't know. Did you see my lion guardian video where I don't roll or take damage?
I did not, but now I want to see that. No rolling or taking damage. Man, that is actually kind of impressive.
Man, and I'm using a great sword too. It's not a fast weapon.
Oh, I love the great sword.
And there's it's just, I can just go into that fight alone, just talking about the interesting things I found about it. Like, you have to attack him from directly behind, and he has this stun moment where he actually he lunges forward. If you don't get directly behind him just right, he will attack you, and then the challenge is ruined. So you got to you have to watch it. The whole thing's insane. I don't know if it's ever been done before. I don't know if it's like a world's first, which is something I've been trying to do with a lot of older games. It's just trying to, like I said earlier, it's just trying to aim for what people haven't done in PS2 games and just explore them further. And I think doing this with the Lion Guardian, it's just something someone hasn't explored because it's not officially a boss. It's not something some people are typically after because it's just a regular enemy on the side. And there's this very specific thing about the strategy about no rolling, and I found something very cool about the enemy by doing that. And that's the whole thing about it. It's not bragging rights. It's just discovering something mechanically interesting about the combat, even if it's intentional or not. I mean, I don't know if the game is entirely meant to be played without rolling. I mean, I don't think really any game is technically. I mean, arguably maybe Dark Souls or maybe some of the From Software games, but I don't know. It's just really hard for me to think that a developer designed a game where, like, oh yeah, you don't have to use that mechanic. It's totally fine.
If there's a button on the controller, it's most likely been accounted for in balancing.
Yeah,
is the best way to think of it.
I mean, whenever I analyze a scenario for a restriction, I'm like, okay, what is totally mandatory and what is totally optional? Obviously, I gotta move. When you play Mario, you have to go to the right. You can't just
Kind of.
you can't
Have you
just
seen? Oh, sorry. Continue.
oh no, I was just saying you just can't stand there and expect the level to win itself unless the timer runs out or that Goomba hits you.
I
You know.
mean, have you seen Imfa's videos? He does these ridiculous challenge runs where he's done like Elden Ring, no walking, and he quick steps his way through the entire game using the quick step from like the daggers.
Oh, I don't know. I don't really watch a
Uh,
whole lot of
it's
YouTubers.
ridiculous. Oh, it's so funny. I will send you a link to that. I think you would get a kick out of it as a big fan of
I mean,
Elden Ring. You're like, why is this man quick stepping his way through every boss? What?
is that pretty viable the way he does it?
No, it's not viable. Don't do it, or you're gonna have an aneurysm.
Oh man. I mean, I've
Yeah.
seen the thumbnail for that video before. I just I'm so I don't just click on any video about From Software games because usually it's just someone being really loud, using loud memes to put in their videos. So in that, whenever I hear that, my ears just bleed immediately. So it's just that's why I just don't click on anything related to gaming a whole lot. Because usually, if it's about gaming, it's just someone talking about an analysis about something like that. But when you, sometimes every once in a while I'll run into a YouTuber that's blasting memes into my ear and that's just screaming on the top of their lungs, and I really don't want any part of it.
Yeah. I think you might actually appreciate his videos then, because he rarely, if ever, talks in his videos. There's no voice. He just plays like some really chill music, usually like jazz or something, or like fun, video game soundtracks. And then we'll play, and he'll make these kind of like they're a guide. Like, if you wanted to do this yourself, here's how to replicate exactly what I did. And he'll, show, what to do, what glitches or weird things he's using to be able to, pull these ridiculous runs off. He's done Skyrim no walking. He's done pacifist runs of a whole bunch of like Dark Souls and FromSoft games where he never does damage or he never kills an enemy or does damage to an enemy, and so he does it like only through NPC summons. Without him contributing at all, except for like healing miracle. There's just so many funny things that I genuinely think you might actually have a really, really good time with.
I mean, I just like hearing people talk about just the analysis and stuff. I mean, I'm not really a big fan of seeing stuff like pacifist mode where you don't kill anything and you just kind of, I mean, like, I just can't really watch someone summon for a boss fight. I don't think I could, I just can't watch that. Because it's just
the way I see it, I mean, I think like, bro, I think it takes more skill than playing the game normally. The way some of these challenge runs go, regardless of the summons, I'm like, bro, you're literally quick stepping around the boss arena, and that is your only means of movement. What?
yeah, I don't know. I just So yeah, Grand Theft Auto. When I was trying to find a difficult way to play Grand Theft Auto, I was thinking, okay, well, how viable it is? I mean, sorry. How viable is it to not kill anything? And so I looked it up, and it turns out someone's already done it, but they've only done it maybe partially. Because, I mean, it doesn't take long till you get to a part where you're like, oh, yeah, well, I got to kill somebody. Because, I mean, it's kind of, inevitable that's going to happen. Because they're...
Like scripted stuff, like you have to shoot someone or you fail the mission?
Yeah, I mean, I'm primarily talking about Grand Theft Auto 4. Which is what I think that one's my favorite Grand Theft Auto. I recently bought it on PC for like $30, and I'm just wondering. I'm like, how can I make Grand Theft Auto more challenging? Like, how can I make this experience more engaging and more memorable? And I played around with Grand Theft Auto 5 a little bit, and I made some of it more memorable than compared to when I first played it. And so recently I've been jumping on. I released a video actually of Grand Theft Auto 4 of me doing something that I considered really beautiful just because of the challenges I set for myself, and it was something that I haven't seen done on YouTube unless it's just something I totally missed out on. But grenades only.
Oh goodness. Good golly gracious, that sounds horrific.
And it's a fun way to play, but also very difficult to do because you gotta throw the grenade in a very precise way. You gotta throw every throw of a grenade. It's gotta be exact. It's gotta be meaningful, and you can't be careless with it because a grenade could fall back right beside you and throw your ragdoll self somewhere into a corner. And I did a few missions like that, and it was it was a blast, pun intended.
No, literally. Yeah.
And but the only thing that really really sucks about Grand Theft Auto 4 is that the cutscenes, the checkpoints are terrible. You can go through 20 minutes of a mission, and if you fail, you got to go all the way back. And
That's awful.
that's actually another subject I wanted to talk about, but we're running out of time. Is that a lot of games have terrible retry menus, like Final Fantasy 16. They have checkpoints that occur after a phase of a boss. So if you want to restart the whole boss and refine your strategy, you have to reload a manual save, even if you can do that, because sometimes there are boss fights thrown in the middle of several other boss fights. So when you press start, you can only either load or quit. You can't save because there's something going on, and so there's no retry last encounter. You have to just finish it. I mean, there are replay chapters in the game, but it's just the same thing. But you cannot save at all at the replay chapters, even in spots where you could have saved in the natural progression of the game. So it's just there's really no good way to practice a boss fight unless you're just doing it in a very tedious way, which is just very very unfortunate. And there's not really a whole lot of viability with the boss fights in terms of restrictions because there's just so much cinematic stuff going on. But I think a really good example for a retry menu in gaming is the Tony Hawk series, like Tony Hawk's Underground, Tony Hawk's Underground 2, where if you fail at something, you can just simply bring up the menu and it gives you a good list of retry options. Retry mission, retry the last checkpoint. I don't remember precisely, but I remember it being really, really good and very accessible, where you can just press start, retry, and just keep going. The Last of Us is also really good about that, where you can just restart at the last encounter. But let me go ahead and wrap it up. It's been 2 hours, but I appreciate you coming on. And yeah, it just flew by. And we'll try to do this again soon. Was there anything else you want to say? Anything to your viewers that happen to watch this podcast?
No, I am. I think I have said everything I needed to say. I am grateful for anybody that does come over and watch my stuff. It's been nice talking and just kind of getting out a whole bunch of months of gaming thoughts and feelings just out there. It's nice.
And I plan on making a Wolverine's Revenge video, 20 years, just talking about my return and explaining what I've seen and what I've gone through. I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lot of things, a lot of little details about each boss fight that I am really excited to talk about. So definitely look forward to that. I've been really busy lately, which is why I haven't released a whole lot in the past month other than just challenge video uploads that I could just simply just push out and just give a little brief description of what went on. But if you want to hang around for just a little bit longer after I stop recording, and we'll talk about a couple other things, definitely appreciate it, and thank you for coming on.
Heck yeah, I'm glad I could be here.
All right, everyone, have a great day.